And welcome to Crusher Convo, where we're crushing the conversation one episode at a time. I'm here to investigate season one of Enterprise, Silent Enemy. And here to join me tonight is Edwin. Welcome, Edwin. Thank you for joining me.
Hello, welcome. Glad to be here. Thanks for the welcome.
And welcome, yes. Welcome to anyone, if anyone's in the chat. My apologies for having to postpone this last episode due to my migraines. As all of you guys know, I suffer from chronic pain and things like that, and migraines is one of them, and it's unpredictable of what might happen. So it's been loads of fun this last couple of weeks. The last time I was sick, it was food poisoning. And now I get migraines, and I'm like, this is not cool. Chuck is in the audience. Hello, Chuck. He's saying hi, Jesse and Edwin. Thank you for joining us tonight. So before we go ahead and get started, I'm going to talk about Cherry Tree. If you love board computers, Kitty on board cubes, or even a Klingon keyboard, go over to mycherrytree.com. Use my code CrusherCombo6 to get 6% off of your order. And don't forget to follow them on the socials at Cherry Tree Incorporated. Do you know anything about Cherry Tree?
I've looked at it based on your recommendations. I've seen
Perfect.
some Ractagino cups, some mouse pads.
We got I have a Ractagino mug. I got my husband that orange Quarks shirt. I got my Obi Borg right here. It's a little addicting. I'm saving up to get a Borg lamp. They have Borg lamps right now. And if you're into Star Wars, they also have Star Wars computers as well, because that also helps with the sales. But anyways, so Edwin, real quick, before we get started, since it's the 60th anniversary, what female character do you find inspiring?
There are a couple that I'd pull out for that. I'd say just almost the first one that comes to mind is Beckett Mariner, for how much she is sort of not completely put together, and that I think accurately reflects where I am.
Well, that's always great. That's what we like to see. We always talk about representation, right? So now I'm kind of questioned of like, Mariner was always like all over the place. So are you in that stage? Season 2, maybe 3?
I definitely have like lots of little things that are, that put me in mind of the up dog, squirrel this, squirrel that. So, I could use a little more focus sometimes.
So your goal is season 5 Mariner. That's your goal.
That's right. And ultimately, and this is the other one I thought of, is because of recency, if I think, if nothing else, Nala Ake is very like earnest, empathetic, patient, all of that, and she's always got her goal in mind, and I feel
Mhm.
like that's a nice continuum.
It's very true. I think Nala was such a great character because she was her own person. Now, granted, she was also 430 years old, so she had plenty of time to figure out who she was. But when it comes to just her being herself and knowing what to do in a split second. You know, she's like lounging on her captain's chair 1 minute, and then all of a sudden she's, you know, engaged the next. And I think her character was such a good representation of what the women of Trek that they've been doing the last 60 years, starting with Nichelle, on to Beverly Crusher, on to Beckett Mariner. And so she was a great character. And I'm sad we're only going to get 2 seasons of her, but at least we get another season and see all the different craziness that Nala likes to do. Chuck does say resistance is futile. And he says Becky Mariner, which I think was something that she did not like. Um, so we are going to be talking about. Oh, it says those old scientists. Guys, I was not prepared. I did my best. As you know, I was feeling good, and I did this at the last second. This is not those old scientists. This is the Silent Enemy from season 1 of Enterprise. And the premiere date is January 16th, 2002. It was directed by Winrich Kolbe, written by Andre Bormanis, and the in-universe date was August 31st to September 2nd in 2151. And so let's go ahead and start this with a clip.
Doctor?
I've stabilized them, but they were subjected to some rather invasive scans.
Will they be all right?
There could be some residual neurological damage. I'm doing everything I can.
Have you ever heard of anything like this?
No.
Are there any Vulcan records of a species that uses similar tactics? And I don't care how classified they might be.
None that I know of, Captain.
Ooh, some tension. So I just barely got into Enterprise last year, and I'm just about to finish it. But the one thing that I did enjoy about season 1 was that it was just boom, right? They're exploring, they're hitting different aliens, they're, you know, trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's this episode, which is kind of in the middle, that of course is something's going on. We're being attacked. We don't know why. And it has that nice alien, like, you know, Ridley Scott's Alien suspense because you just don't know what's going on. When you first saw this episode, what were your thoughts about how the show had started up until this episode particular?
I have to say here that as a Star Trek fan, as much as I think I am, there are lots of holes in my Star Trek like viewing. Enterprise is one of those. I've seen scattered episodes here and there, but when I watched this, I knew a little bit about when it was set and sort of the attitude of the crew and humanity in general, but my knowledge about it wasn't very deep. After I watched it, you know, certainly some of my impressions were, man, like as you noted, they certainly seem to have a chip on their shoulder. At least Archer does. Trip shows it later, um, and knowing and wanting more context. Actually, I actually went back. I've watched this episode twice in preparation for this, and in between I went back and watched the pilot episode to like get a better sense of, okay, let me just make sure I know what the setting is, you know, where they are in their development, why they're out here in the first place. There are a few points in this episode where the question comes up, like, do we go home or do we stay on mission? And for my part, I was like, what exactly is their mission right now?
That's a good question, though, because at first it's just like we're going to explore space and they want to meet other aliens, right? Because they know Vulcans and the Vulcans had been a part of them for quite some time. But I don't think they really thought it through of what if we meet hostile aliens, you know, like, oh, the ship is not battle ready and can't handle this. We're going to have to go back home. Like, I don't think they
Yeah.
prepared themselves. So that is a really good point to have that out there. Now, I did mention this last week when I was posting for us to prepare for our episode, and First Flight Podcast, if you guys have not heard, Abby and Chris do talk about Enterprise. I love Enterprise. They're called the Carrot Crew. You got to listen to understand why they're called the Carrot Crew. The thing is, though, is they asked me, what's the A plot and what's the B plot? And I thought I knew. And so I kind of went back and I was like, oh, you're right. Like, it starts off as the A plot as mysterious aliens. And I think that was what they were trying to go for. But trying to figure out what Malcolm's favorite meal was came more interesting, in my opinion. And like Chris said, he was all like, it's more of the A plot in his opinion because it was resolved. Like we found out that pineapples was, his favorite, which now Malcolm's no longer my favorite because I hate pineapples, but I digress. And so but then you never get resolved about the mysterious aliens. And I was like, that's true. It was almost like a throw in, like this episode seemed like it had more to it. And they just didn't get there. Did you have that same feeling, or were you satisfied of how the mystery of it all?
I think we all like closure, right? And one of the things that I think, as I like let this one sit for a while, initially my reaction was, well, that's just weird. We don't know what happened there. We don't know anything. We don't know anything definitive about that situation, who they are, what they wanted. And as I let it like stew over the next few days, I think I settled on that being actually the point, that because of where humanity was in its sort of maturity in exploring space, I think the point was meant to be, we don't always, one, we don't know all the answers. Two, we may not always learn the answers, even when we encounter other people, go through whatever adventures, we may come out of that with an incorrect and incomplete or just flat out wrong understanding of what happened.
I like that mindset. I do. I like that mindset because I guess that is the mystery of it all. We don't need to know the answer. Maybe it was the fact that there are maybe certain aliens that we don't need to make contact with. Because like we've learned a lot, and even in TNG where there were, like attached, for instance, right? It was the Prit and the Kess, and one was, xenophobic, and the other ones wanted to be a part of the Federation. But those ones that were xenophobic were like, no, we're good on our own. We don't want the outside world coming into our little space and ruin what we, basically have created. These aliens probably just, maybe any time they contacted another alien, they were hostile, and so they couldn't trust other aliens that they saw, so they weren't sure to trust humans. So it's a good point to kind of think of, we're not really looking at the aspect of what was the mindset of these particular aliens, and maybe it's just good that they just kind of let it go. When having that kind of mindset and then kind of going to the A/B plot, which is Malcolm's birthday. It's it's like mysterious aliens and they're trying to hurt us and all this crazy stuff. And then it's like, it's such a small little plot of like, what's Malcolm's favorite food? Like, it doesn't really connect. Like, it doesn't seem similar. I don't know. I guess I'm trying to say it's like, it was almost kind of anticlimactic that it was just like trying to figure out what his favorite food was. Apparently he doesn't have a good thing with his family because no one knew what his favorite food was, or he doesn't want people to know. And then it ended up being pineapple. I don't know. I just think that it just wasn't that great of like, I would have hoped it would have been like some kind of cuisine that Archer, could have made for him because it was a specialty in his family. I don't know. I think they could have upped the game a little bit. Am I wrong? Or did you get the same feeling?
No, there was just like I know that there are structural reasons to have like an A plot, a B plot, sometimes a C plot, and it's good for them. Sometimes they align, sometimes they don't. But this just seemed a weird incongruity. Like there was so like the scales were so different, the topics were so different. Um, it, you can imagine like, oh, one plot is saving a civilization, and plot B was like the doctor stubbed his toe. Like that's the kind of difference in scale that I felt was happening there. Um, I mean, maybe it lightened up the other one a little bit, but yeah, it was an odd juxtaposition for me.
It was, and yes, they were trying to maybe lighten it up because the A plot that they were trying to do with the mysterious aliens was very Ridley Scott alien, but it was almost too cutesy, right? With oh, I'm blanking on her name, the communications officer who had to hunt
Hoshi.
for Hoshi. Okay, her having to go through all these hoops trying to figure out, like, even the friend who was like, oh, he wanted to see that girl in the restaurant. And I was like, did we really need to know that? Like, is
Yeah.
that even important? I don't know. It, like I said, it was very much this. And then, of course, the only thing that got resolved was the cute little side story. And it kind of just felt like it pushed out the main story of it all. I didn't hate it. I loved the mystery of it. My husband is a huge Alien fan. We have alien stuff everywhere. He just got a new office and he has alien decorations everywhere. And so you kind of start with that feeling, but then it just like, it's almost like if, what's it called? Oh, he's going to kill me that I cannot remember the ship. Not Nostromo. Okay. Sorry, hubby.
Sounds right.
But uh the fact that it would be like, oh, we saw an alien and we're going home, like like we saw a xenomorph hiding and the cat's like, peace out, we're leaving, like nothing else happened after that. Maybe a John Hurt death first and then that was it, and then they all left. Like that's kind of how I felt was going on in that aspect.
And they
What
were
do you
kind of
think?
considering it, right?
They were. This almost felt like it should have been a two-parter.
It could have been. I think they could have filled that out.
I know. I mean, at that time they were doing 23, 26 episodes. They could have filled it a little more, but maybe they just didn't want to create a new species. I don't know. Do you think that like what do you think they could have added with it just being a one episode storyline? What do you think could have added to kind of help with the A plot and then maybe kind of help with the B plot a little bit?
As I thought about the A plot and thinking about, wondering if perhaps the point of it was that, we're we as in humanity, this crew in particular, being out here like essentially as spacefaring babies, right? The possibility that we will run into situations we don't understand. Um, I kind of thought, as unsettling as that can be, right? I actually thought this could be enough in the sense of like art leading you to the precipice of facing a question, right? So, oh, if this episode's benefit can be bringing us to that question of, oh, how will we handle these sorts of like unanswerable questions, and how can we be prepared for them? I thought that was actually brave.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right, because like if they would have done this kind of story with the next generation or Deep Space Nine, it wouldn't hold as well because by this point they've already met thousands of different species, that there shouldn't have been any issue of trying to figure out what was going on. Chuck does say that the plot thickens on this review. We are unraveling this episode. I mean, because again, there was no resolution with plot A. Sorry, Chris, I'm saying that the mystery aliens is plot A. I'm sticking to my guns on that one. And then Malcolm's birthday is plot B. But yeah, it wouldn't have worked. But because Enterprise is the fourth show, like, fans have already gone through multiple different species and multiple different encounters and different, we've had Genesis, we've had, Arena, we've had all these different things. So for me, when it comes to this, like, yes, they're the baby ship. They're the first one out there. They're still learning. They're still trying to figure out. But for the fans, I feel, for some reason, I feel like Abby and Chris are going to yell at me for this. But I feel that, sorry guys, I still love you. I just feel like it could have been done better due to the fact that this is the fourth show. Like, it could have been written a little differently to kind of still follow that this is the baby ship, but do it a little differently for the fans to kind of grasp at. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I think that is a fascinating sort of meta thought, right? One of the things that we can reflect on now, having, had the chance to watch, let's say, the first season of Starfleet Academy, we can reflect on that in real time, right? We can see how well Starfleet Academy handles its stuff, handles, character, not quite focal characters' deaths, in a way that, if you compare it to Discovery and how they handled some of those, you can see that, well, Discovery didn't handle it quite so well, but 3-4 shows later, they have clearly learned how to do these things better. And I think we could, and because so many of the creators of TNG sort of funneled all the way into Enterprise, I think we could have expected some of that also.
Yeah, and yeah, I know I did go a little meta there for a second, making it all full circle. But it's just, if Enterprise was the very first show that people saw, then that it would make sense.
Yeah.
Kind of like what the original series did. Like, they did encounter a bunch of aliens and there was hostile situations, but there was always a resolution at the end of it. And then they would do the funny little 60s shtick of, laughing and making a joke and everything's all hunky-dory, even though they almost died 10 minutes before. That's what they did here with Malcolm's birthday. That's literally, he was all like, he's like, Captain, how did you know that pineapple was my favorite? And, Hoshi's like, wink, wink, and it was just I don't know. Now, IMDb fans have put it at 7.5 out of 8. I mean, out of 10. I feel like that's a smidge too high. Maybe because people really loved it. They figured, maybe felt that, knowing Malcolm's favorite food was important. I don't know if that, I'm just about to finish the series. So far from what I know, we don't hear about pineapples anymore. So lost, lost opportunity there, apparently. And then I don't even think we even see these aliens ever again. So unless spoilers at the very end of the series, besides the, Frakes and Marina situation, I don't know. I mean, it was almost like they were going for it, and then they're like, never mind. Pull back. Did the aliens, though, remind you of that species 857? I'm totally getting the numbers wrong, but it was from Voyager. They reminded me of those.
There was a little echo of that for me. I want to say it was a lot based on just sort of the CGI-ness of it. Even like having watched so much, most of my Star Trek origin story is the Next Generation, and even though they had some great graphics and stuff in there, one of the things that they didn't have very often were these like fully CGI creatures. And when I I do remember seeing them like poking around in Voyager, another incomplete series for me. But but
They
seeing
made it
these
home
guys in
though.
here, yeah. But seeing these guys in this episode definitely like brought some like, oh, this they are not shying away from using CGI stuff in here. But you can see some of the like, well, this is clearly not current day technology.
Right. I know. You could tell it's a little dated when it comes to 2026. But I think also because we've had the movies. You know, they were
Yes,
filming
absolutely.
Nemesis when they were doing Enterprise. And you know, they'd done all the CGI with the Borg and, you know, was it the scimitar and all that stuff. But they thought, well, let's go for it with the TV show, especially because I think because it was on UPN and they were really trying to make this show very exciting. It just never caught that because it was on a totally different network. But I'm wondering, while I was watching it, I was wondering if maybe they were trying to do a callback to that species 8952, whatever they're called, because it just reminded me of that species, and we saw it on Voyager. So, of course, hundreds of years later, that maybe that those species were out there, or maybe there was a part of that species that were, you know, connected to these ones and they were trying to make that connection, and maybe they were thinking of making that connection later, but it just never came to be. So I always just wonder if there was a reason behind this and then it just kind of disappeared.
Well, they did go through, I mean, it was a lot of effort to get that series going and to carry it along, right? So, as much as there might have been ups and downs in the writing room and so on, maybe they dropped it. Um, but I kind of like to believe right now that they meant for it to be like, boom, a one-time species. They never run into him again. Th- this is just a mystery that they just have to be okay with living with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Chuck says species
Uh,
8472. Thanks, Chuck. I knew it was an 8. You got to give me that. And there was a 2. I said a 2 somewhere. I think I said 5-2. Little off, but I did 8 and 2. I just didn't know the middle two, which is stupid because it's 4-7, and I should have realized that. Because 47 is a Trek number. Sorry, Doctor. Sorry, Larry.
very
Larry,
good.
Dr. Trek. I failed in knowing that one. Now, were there any, you know, as we're wrapping this up, was there any other thoughts that you had on this episode that you wanted to share that you kind of like clicked as you were, because you said, you know, you were watching Enterprise just kind of here and there, but you were really focused on writing your notes for this episode. Was there anything that popped out to you?
Uh, one of the things that one of the things I think that were biggest in my head, um, is that I found a lot of like echoes with other things. In particular, weirdly, Starfleet Academy, but again, probably because it was recency effect, right? But you know, with Enterprise, we see a humanity and a crew who are like out there in space for the first time. They're encountering these other species. They're finding their way in whatever, you know, whether it's forging a relationship with this species, that species, completely missing out on this one, but hopefully finding ways to grow into wandering around in space. I think Starfleet Academy for me, a lot of that was after the burn, finding ways to rebuild, finding ways to connect again, to trust each other, find that trust, find the vulnerability, um, and ultimately to build relationships anew. And so here, I mean, it just feels like an odd echo, but I think like an important echo. In Enterprise, they're still sort of finding out and figuring out what their ideals should be, maybe. Um, and you see that in some of the like resentment of the Vulcans and you know what is that relationship going to turn into? Um, and as I understand it, ultimately, creating the Federation out of the series. In seeing those themes and seeing kind of like this resonance with Starfleet Academy, I, it made me like, oh, maybe I should watch more of Enterprise. But I've
Well,
got a list, man. I've got a list.
I mean, it's 950 plus episodes. I'm still working on it, right? Like, it's kind of hard. It's not like easy. We could do it binge overnight. But that's actually a really good way of looking at it, because we're having these brand new shows that do echo the past shows that we have, and they're honoring them in a certain way. But the greatness about Starfleet Academy was that they had to start over. Because they were, like you said, they were rebuilding after the burn. They had to go back to basics and try to figure everything out. And they were starting with bringing back the school and doing all of those different things. And so that is almost kind of honoring Enterprise in a way of like, how did it feel, Nalika thing, how did it feel to be Archer, to start brand new out here, the unknown, not knowing what to expect. And then she having to be the chancellor with all these kids and being like, here's the unknown, not knowing what to expect. And also, protecting these kids because they are the future. So it's always nice to see those newer shows honor the past shows that we have in that way, because we can connect the dots, right? So, but I mean, I didn't hate the episode. I just, like I said, just felt a little off. I did love the suspense. I did love the mystery. Clearly these, aliens were, I guess you can kind of say, far superior because their firepower was better. They were, they were doing some kind of like experiment on those gentlemen that were on the engine. Yeah, completely out of it. Like, they had technology that Enterprise couldn't even thought of. But it just left me kind of like, it's an episode that I wouldn't go back to. So that's kind of like, it's not one that I'll be like, oh, I'm going to watch The Silent Enemy again. It's just like, if it's on, great. If it isn't,
Yes.
it's fine.
Right.
Did you have that kind of same feeling?
Yeah. When you were talking about the rating, was it IMDb? I also felt like that was higher than mine. I feel like this was like, it wasn't a bad rating for me, in like, I would think of it as a C-ish minus rating, which puts it like maybe a 7, maybe even lower. Not that it was bad, but it was rough.
Right. It was rough. Exactly. It was rough. And this is a perfect segue, because then we're going to do our tricorder rating.
By tricorder.
Now, I actually got a tricorder rating out. I only got 3 votes, but that's fine. We did get 1 vote for 5 silent treatments. Okay. We got 2 votes for 4 pineapples. And no one voted for 3 misunderstandings, 2 investigations, or 1 Dear John letter. Sorry, Trip. So out of a 1 to 5 rating, we were both talking that we felt that 7.5 was a little high. But out of a 1.5 rating, where are you in the in this?
In this, out of these guys, I feel like
Yeah.
I'm somewhere around the misunderstandings one.
Same. I'm a good old 3. I'm right in the middle. Because like you said, that was good moments. And yes, the trying to figure out the pineapples with Malcolm was funny. And it had some funny moments. It just didn't feel like it connected well with the mysterious aliens. It was just kind of weird. And I'm sorry. I keep like, I had to put the Dear John letter for Trip because of his girlfriend, and they lost the Echo 1 thing. Like, a lot happened, and then it just kind of was like, and we never heard about it again. So that's kind of where we're out.
Natalie from
Pensacola, right?
Yes. That sounds right.
I'm proud of myself. It's been a week since I've seen this episode, so almost a week. All right. Well, I didn't really get any pennies, but I know I'm going to be hearing from Abby because she loves to comment right after this, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say. But like I said, Chris did mention that, he kind of felt that Malcolm's storyline of his food was more of an A plot than the mysterious aliens. So, which is fine. Chuck says pizza and pineapple. Chuck, we are not even going to go there. Okay. When I say
I'll take it.
I hate one, I'm allergic to pork, so I can't even have the ham, which I'm sure it's great with pineapple. And two, pineapple is just not my thing. Pineapple and coconut. So no pina coladas for this girl. It's just not my favorite. But if I had to choose between the two, pineapple all the way. Versus coconut, no coconuts. I would not survive Gilligan's Island. That is for sure. Now, on my next episode, which is going to be, I'm going to be talking about what's going to happen this Friday, but my next episode, which is, I believe, May 1st, and I really hope I didn't mess this up and put the wrong sick bay spinner, but we're going to find out what my next episode's going to be. So hopefully I changed it. So crossing fingers, guys. We'll see how it goes. Yay, I didn't mess up. I at least did some preparing while I was not feeling good, or prior to when I was not feeling good. But on May 1st, I'm going to be sitting down with Jason. He had reached out on Threads and was like, hey, I would love to be a guest. I'm like, cool. And his episode is going to be The Last Generation, which was the season 3 series finale for Star Trek Picard. I'm so excited we get to talk about Beverly Crusher and Jack Crusher. It's been a little while. Actually, let's do that real fast since there has been lack of Beverly in this episode. How do you think Beverly would have handled, one, trying to figure out Malcolm's favorite food? I think she would have been on it like Hoshi. Okay. And two, she loves a mystery. She would not have been like, oh, we don't need to know about those aliens. She would have been like, I am going to learn everything about them. I'm going to figure this out, even if it kills me. Those are my Beverly thoughts. I don't know if you agree.
I definitely see her like being very dedicated to solving mysteries. And I think this is, you're right on both counts. I mean, Dr. Phlox had access to the answers. I gotta think that Dr. Beverly Crusher would have those exact things in line, and she wouldn't even hesitate to dive in.
Oh, for sure. She would have been like, she would have done both at the same time. She's like, I'm going to try and figure out what happened to these engineer guys, them being comatose, while talking to Malcolm's parents in wherever they were, in the Philippines or something like that, right? Malaysia, I think they had mentioned. Like, yes. She'll be doing both. She will be multitasking because she just loves a mystery. She is someone that is dedicated. Joel saying hi all, and hi to Chuck. Thank you for joining us. We are here to wrap up real quick. You should probably tell us real fast what you thought of Enterprise's Silent Enemy. I had a lot to say. And that Beverly would have totally figured out who these aliens were and probably would have, I don't know. She would have made first contact and been like, they're friends. Like, that's just how she is. So, now, of course, as we're wrapping this up, I'm going to go ahead to my redhead alert. Okay, guys. I had the opportunity to sit down with our favorite helmsman. Well, I mean, he's one of my favorites. Of course, Eric Ortegas is a favorite of mine, but we do like Tom. Tom Paris himself, Robert Duncan McNeil. It was a wonderful conversation. We were talking for so long. Like it was only supposed to be like a 35-minute interview, and it turned out to be an hour. Okay. I mean, a grand old time. So I cannot wait for you guys to see this. He had so much wonderful things to say about his journey as an actor and into directing. And yeah, it was just awesome time. I feel privileged. And we also got to talk about music. What better than that? We were talking about REM, and I just was like, this is awesome. But this is going to drop on Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So meet me in the chat, and we'll talk more about my interview with Robert. And don't forget that my giveaway is still going on. If I get 1,000 followers on Instagram and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, I will be giving away this picture and Gates McFadden's autograph. So please share my content just so I can get to my goal sooner, and a very lucky listener will get to win her autograph. And you can submit a penny for your thoughts by recording off crusherconvo.com a 60 to 90 second clip, or you can email me your thoughts at crusherconvo@gmail.com, and I will announce your penny live on the air. You could also comment to me on the socials. I love to hear from you guys, but if you do a sound clip, I definitely love to hear that. So please go ahead and submit your thoughts whenever you know my next episode. And of course, my Patreon shout outs go to Leslie, Dave, Grayson, and Eliza, who are my Commander patrons, and Chuck, Engineer Mark, and Johannes Borg, who are my Admiral patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast and enjoy exclusive extra content, just head over to patreon.com/crusherconvo, and you can sign up for as low as $3 a month. All right. Now, Chuck says Robbie is awesome. He sure is. Can't wait to share that interview. Now, Edwin, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Please let the listeners know where they can find you.
I am mostly active as a fan of different fandoms on Blue Sky as Edwin is Prime there on the screen. All mashed together, no underscores or anything odd like that.
Awesome. Now, you have like an idea of a podcast that you're trying to...
Yes, very baby steps of possibly doing a podcast. And, when that comes together, I'll let people know through that Edwin is Prime Blue Sky thing, and probably reach out to folks like Jesse.
And I will be happy to share it. But thank you again so much. And thank you for being so flexible with my health issues. I really appreciate it.
Totally.
Thank you to Chuck and Joel in the chat. This was loads of fun. And Abby and Chris, I cannot wait to hear your thoughts about this episode. When it came up that we were doing Enterprise, I was so stoked because I knew you were going to let us know your thoughts on it. And yeah, I cannot wait to hear about that. But thank you guys. And until next time, live long and prosper. Bye, guys. Don't forget, you can listen to all the audio versions of Crusher Convo on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can support the podcast by buying merch on TeePublic, buy me a coffee by scanning that QR code, or becoming a Patreon member for as low as $3 a month. But the best way to support Crusher Convo is to like and subscribe here on YouTube. You can also find me on Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads, or TikTok, so please follow me there. And of course, all this information can be found on crusherconvo.com.
Crusher out.